Here they come.
Oh, oh.
Hi, everybody.
Have we got more than one screen, William?
Yes, I have.
Okay, I'll have a quick look. Oh, yes, brilliant. That's lovely.
Shirley Throughbon's just coming on.
Patricia Fair.
Right, John, I suggest we go. Shirley's obviously having a bit of a problem, so.
Okay. Well, can I start by welcoming everybody to this strange, unique, hopefully, AGM for the Civic Society. We've never done this before, so it'll be an interesting experience for everybody, and maybe quite tedious for some of you just listening. Can I say, first of all, that it's quite difficult for us to arrange a system whereby you can contribute. So, for example, the very first item on our agenda is apologies for absence. And if you do know somebody who would want to be included on that list, it won't be possible for you to say it. But there is the chat facility at the bottom of your screen. So whenever you want to say something, if you put it as a chat message, we'll try to pick it up at some point in the meeting. The meeting, we hope, will be brisk because otherwise it just becomes tedious. So having welcomed you all, can we move on to the agenda? First of all, we've had no apologies for absence, which is fine. But as I've said, if you want to send us a message about that, then do by all means. Item number 2 is the approval of the minutes for last year's AGM. And for that, I do need a proposer and a second. So William will be moving between the 2 screens of faces so that we can get a proposer and seconder from yourselves. Could somebody who has read the minutes comfortably, Jen Capewell, is that correct? Carol, good. Carol's taking minutes, so that's a little bit long distance this. So Jen Capewell, could we have a seconder? Simon. Can you just jot those down? So it's Jen and Simon. And just a quick show of hands that we can accept those as, you know, an accurate record of what happened last year. Thank you. Item number 3 is matters arising. I suggest that if you do have something that you want to raise from last year, you use the chat facility at the bottom of the screen. If all else fails, please, if you wish to, email me and just have your say that way, and we'll incorporate it into the minutes that we create of the meeting. Okay, item number 4 is my report. And because of the awkwardness of doing everything on Zoom, I've written it out. I hope it doesn't sound stilted. I hate writing things out and then you'll see me looking down rather than looking at you. So apologies all round for all those things. So I want to start by saying what I think has been successful in this very, very unusual year. And I suppose the obvious success is that the coronavirus has not stopped us operating. Obviously, we've had to cancel massively. We've had to cancel our public lectures. We've had to cancel all trips away. and we've had to cancel the holiday to the Isle of Man. But, and the but is the important thing, the lectures have been transferred, as you know, to Zoom, and therefore they're available to all members who have access to the internet. And sadly, that excludes a small number of people who are members. And it also opens those lectures up to a wider audience than we've ever had before, because they are available after the lectures through the website as recordings. And I do know that they've been used by people who have kind of found out about them, or members who live in other parts of the country. Okay, so that Zoom development is very much down to Colin Grant and to William Geddy, and we all owe the two of them both a very, very great deal in this year. So I would like to have that recognized. Also, but I said that the trips and the holiday had to be cancelled. Well, they haven't been cancelled. They've been postponed, and they will be scheduled. The trips will be scheduled as soon as we can do trips safely, and that will be, I'm sure, with vaccination sometime in the first part of the summer. And thanks to Margaret Lowry, the holiday has been rescheduled, and I'll come on to that later when I'd like to thank Margaret. And finally, the public lectures will be resumed as soon as safety allows. But until then, Zoom lectures are the order of the day. So the first few months of next year are going to be, as they have been this year, on the internet. So moving on, what else has happened in this year that I would like to draw your attention to? And one of the really good things has been that the Society has been working much more closely with other organisations in Richmond. This is nothing, by the way, to do with coronavirus at all, but I'll just give you two examples of how we have knitted ourselves more into the the organisation of the town. The first example, and we said it to you before, but I'm repeating it now, the audio guide for the town, which has been used extensively by visitors to the town. You very likely know that the audio guide was originally created by Gillian Howells, along with and helped by North Country Theatre. And it was a very professional product indeed, but it's now been updated and adapted to mobile phone use by the IT team at Purple Creative at Ask, and promoted by the Business and Tourism Association and the Information Centre. They're the key players. Now, our specific contribution has been in Colin Grant's work to incorporate the guide to our, I'm calling them our, but the 33 plaques that exist in the town that the Civic Society has erected over many years now. And all the information about those plaques can now be accessed by visitors to the town through their own mobile phones, and they can then get much more of the history of the people who have made Richmond famous in the past. So that's one example. I said there were two that I could think of. The second one is bringing us right up to date, and it explains to you why we've got Carol Watson with us this evening. And Carol, you are very, very welcome indeed. You may just see Carol waving a hand. You will be hearing from her in a much, it'll be the more interesting part of the evening, I'm afraid, rather than listening to people like myself. But what I was wanting to say is that the Civic Society is working with the 950th Celebrations Committee. And our part in the project is that we are sponsoring an archaeological dig inside the castle walls, which is scheduled for August. And it's going to be targeted I'm very pleased to say this, it's going to be targeted towards families and to young would-be archaeologists. And you will be hearing about this project much more in the coming months. So those are some of the things that I feel have been a limited success, limited because of coronavirus and no other limitations to mention. So moving on, I'd just like to briefly report to you about the work of the planning group, which is always, it's not hidden from view, it's very much published and in the public domain, but unless you seek it out, you don't know what's happening. So the team of 5 members, they're all members of the Civic Society. We've found ways of keeping our work going right the way through lockdown. So we've commented to the planners on every planning application that is in a conservation area in Richmondshire, or applications which affect listed buildings, either listed buildings themselves or close to them, overlooking them maybe. And I think I'm rather pleased about that. I think to have managed to keep that going right the way through 2020 so far is an achievement. And on top of that, I think one of the best outcomes I'd like to report to you is that this has been going on, this point I'm trying to make has been developing over several years now. There was a time when there was quite a lot of sometimes a tension between what we wanted to say about buildings in the town and the planners, and we felt that often we had very little power, and that seems to have changed gradually, very likely because there are new people in the planning department, and they're talented people as well. So we now feel that our work has been recognised and it's valued by the planning department, and it's been particularly valued and used in the period when the district council had no conservation officer on their staff. That has now changed. They have access to a conservation officer 1 day a week, which is minimal, but very, very valuable indeed. So that's a little bit about the planning group. I'd also like this evening just to say something about the Civic Society generally, and it's occurred to me from kind of discussions that we've had in our committee meetings that we've held on Zoom. It's really about the future and of the society. I've already stressed that we want to get back to normal, but I want us to think beyond that. And as we all know, everything we do depends on a very small group of people, and we're all aging. Sorry to put it like that. We're all aging faster each year. So please, will you, as members, give some thought to this over the Christmas break. What I'm doing is I'm asking you to either volunteer or to suggest people who you think would be ideal as members of the active organising side of the society. So you may be able to think of somebody, they may not even be a member of the society, but you know them and you think that they're a bit younger maybe. I always think that people become interested in the Civic Society in their 50s maybe, when they're parental maybe, work is closing down a little bit, youngsters going to university maybe, and then they start looking and taking on activities outside the home. So I'll leave that one with you. Nothing's going to die away exactly, at least I hope not. But we need to give some thought to the future. And finally, if I may, I'd just like to run through a few thank yous. Everybody who's given an awful lot to the society this year. I've already mentioned William and Colin, and they have been our 2020 chart toppers, really, keeping the society functioning. Before the virus changed our lives, it was, if you remember, Jez Cornish who gave us enormous assistance in organising the technology at the Methodist Church. So thank you, Jez. I'm not sure if you're with us today, but thank you very much indeed. And although none of them are here, I would like to thank all our lecturers who have given us a lift in a difficult year with all their knowledge. And they have all very generously allowed us to record their talks, which they didn't have to do as professional people, but they said yes. And so their knowledge and their interest is available for general use. So moving on, thanks as always to Carol, Graham, Peter and Simon, as well as Colin, for helping that's our team for running the society. We have sadly been without Tony Dykes, who's seriously ill, and I spoke to him recently, and he really can't stand for re-election this year. So that's our group, and thank you to them all from me, and me means on behalf of all the membership. Thanks to my 4 colleagues on the planning group. They're Chris, David, Shirley and John. I can see David bang in front of me as I look at the screen. I feel we make an expert team. Thank you to my wife, Tina. She's just to my right and invisible to you, but nevertheless, very much there. Thank you for producing more and more of the review each year that we produce it. And to Dorothy for her support and her eagle-eyed proofreading. I don't think Dorothy will be here this evening because she's slightly tech fearful, I think. But she is an eagle-eyed proofreader. And thank you also to all of you who contribute and write articles. As you know, you've just received the review. You know that several of the articles have been written by members, and that's always the case. Thank you to Margaret Lowry for all the negotiations that she's undertaken to keep the Isle of Man holiday alive and kicking, and it will take place next year. And finally, to Marcia Howard. I can see Marcia in front of me now as well. Our thanks for keeping our Facebook page always up to date and keeping us the name of the Civic Society out there in social media. So, and forgive me, I think that's everybody, but if I've missed somebody, I apologize from the depths of my heart. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's my report. If there's anything in it that you want to chat about, use the chat facility, but I need to mute myself now and hand you over to Graham, who's going to give us a verbal run through the Treasurer's report. Graham.
Thanks. The statement, the accounts were sent out with the review. If you have them to hand, I'm going to be referring to them. If not, I'll just skim through the important parts of it. They'll be prepared as usual by Tranter and Company. And in summary, at the 31st of October, we had a total in our accounts of £16,178.58. And you'll see that in the year, we have a surplus of 3,448. However, during the year, we benefited from a very generous donation from one of our members, and this has been earmarked for a special project next year. But at the end of this year, it was in these accounts. So, in fact, to get a working view of our finances, we have to ignore that donation, and our actual income for 2020 was only 3,400 against an expenditure of 5,137. That was an overspend of £1,700, which is almost exactly the amount spent on the refurbishment and updating of the plaques and the trail boards. So we more or less broke even on the year. Our income was reduced very slightly by a fall in membership, and because we've had no meetings since March, we haven't benefited from visitor fees or raffle ticket sales. Of course, there's been no trips at all either this year. The cost of the review continues to creep up, but we have made a significant saving in the cost of hiring a venue, partly because the Methodist Church is a lot less expensive, but mainly because we've been meeting on Zoom. We've spent money this year refurbishing, as John has said, and updating the information boards and redecorating our wall plaques around the town and republishing the town trail leaflet into a glossy new version, which is really good. And all this has been done in advance of the 950th celebrations coming up next year. On the assumption that our virtual experience will come to an end soon, we will be able to return to real meetings, and we feel that we could reduce the subscriptions slightly this year, as you may have noticed from the membership renewal form, which we sent out with the review. We've included a stamped addressed envelope with those to facilitate a quick response, and replies are coming in very steadily. We've had quite a lot already. If you still are waiting to pay your subs, we'd welcome your checks as soon as you can get them to us. Over a third have been received so far, and I think I've nothing further to say, John.
Thank you, Graham. Hope everybody can hear me still. We now move on to the election of officers, and nobody has come forward to put themselves up for election or suggest somebody who would like to. So what I suggest is that we simply move to re-elect the existing committee en bloc. It's the simplest way of doing it. So if somebody would like to propose that and then second it, then that would get us through that part of the agenda. Yeah, I've got somebody, but I haven't gotten, I'm picking up Richard and Gwyneth, I think. Yeah, got you. And a seconder, if we could. Bev Joycey. A blast from the past there, Bev. I hope you're well. Good. Could we move on to the election of the committee? We've elected the. Oh, sorry, I've missed out a show of hands on the election of the officers. Could we just have a show of hands for that briefly? Lovely. Looks like 100% on that screen, so that's wonderful. Thank you very much. And could we have a proposer for the committee to re-elect the committee? Anybody willing to? That's David Barraclough, I can see there. And a seconder, please.
Tony Dale.
Tony Dale, thank you. And a show of hands for that. Brilliant, many thanks indeed. We're almost done and almost ready to move on to the really interesting part of the evening, which is Carol Watson's contribution. We need your agreement to keep with our auditor, Paul Tranter in Stokesley, who's served us very well for many years now. Could we have a proposer for that we keep using Paul Tranter? Colin, I'll just write this down, Colin, forgive me. And a seconder. William, can you see a seconder?
I'm looking.
Simon, I can see.
Yeah.
That's for Paul Tranter. And a show of hands for that. Okay. Well, we would now move to any other business, which is your opportunity to say something, but it would have to be through chat. So if you'd like a kind of a couple of minutes before we move on to Carol, and if anybody wants to use that to raise an issue or make a comment, that's very, very welcome. I'll put myself on mute for a couple of minutes.
How many members do we have at the moment?
Somebody has asked how many members do we have, or have we had this year, let's say, and it very much depends whether you count a family membership as one membership or two people. So there's a body count and a membership count, if you like. Graham, can you unmute yourself and give us the update?
Yeah. So far this year, we've had 46 renewals. We have 20 life members, so that's now would count that as 66 memberships of either single or double membership. And last year we had 150 memberships in total. So we're about a bit over a third at the moment.
Right.
Thank you.
Somebody has, Jane Capewell has asked whether there's any news on the Harvest Garage, and I have no news to give on that. It's not an issue that would come through the planning to the Civic Society. So if anybody has information that they can share, do use the chat facility. William, I'm picking up these messages in a different way. Oh, I've got them now. Colin has a message for us, Colin Grant. The audio guide had 1,142 hits in its first 3 months of being used in the town. So over 1,000 hits in 3 months, in the first few months. So I think that's excellent. A message from Kay Marriott to everybody. Congratulations to all involved in the Zoom lectures. It has been great to have them while we can't meet physically, and they've been done really well. Many thanks. And another message, I'm afraid I don't know the name because it's concealed.
Daleen Monkhouse, John.
Sorry, beg your pardon. Hi, everybody. Looking at the final accounts, what does CCLA mean? Aileen. Over to you, Graham. What does CCLA mean?
It's an investment account which is connected with the church commissioners. It's a low risk account that produces about £4 or £5 every quarter, I think, to our accounts. It did drop this year, of course, with the interest rates fell through the floor. But I can't remember what the letters actually mean, but I can let Eileen know when I go and get the account, get a statement and see what it stands for. They call themselves CCLA.
Yeah, if you Google them, they have a very good website. Yeah.
They do. Yes, they do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's it's certainly the end of the 2 minutes. Oh, sorry. One final message from Merrin. I'm sure it's been a steep learning curve, but many thanks to all involved for your mastery of the technology to keep the lecture program running and providing such high quality events. So thank you for that little encouragement. We all need it, Merrin. So thank you very much. Can we now close that chat session down, unless you want to continue writing if you wish, and then we'll pick them up later. That's really what I mean. Because I'd like to move on to the real fun bit of the meeting from certainly from my point of view, and it's to say hello and welcome to Carol Watson. Carol has that amazing name that is her job as well, because she edits What's On, and she is a Watson. So it'd be a curious world if you had to do jobs that were related only to your name. Goodness knows what I would have done.
To work in McDonald's.
Oh yes, I would have been in a burger bar somewhere. Carol, you're very welcome. We all, I think, now know that next year, starting in spring, is going to be a constant round of events and entertainments. So bring us, please, up to date with everything to do with the 950th planning. I'm going to mute myself. And then could I just say to people that at the end of what Carol has to say, we'll have another chat session specifically for what Carol has been talking about. Carol, over to you.
Lovely, thank you very much. Can you hear me? That's all right, I'm unmuted now? Good, good. Good evening, everyone. It's lovely to see all the faces on both screens. And thank you, John and the team, for inviting me to speak on behalf of the 950th team. It's a real privilege and it's a real opportunity to share with you some of the ideas that have been planning and festering over the last 2 years, I'm afraid, or so I would say. Those of you who don't know me, I've worked with the Walking on Book Festival for the last 5 years and will continue to do so in the short and medium term future, as well as being involved with the 950th. And what I'll do this evening is I'll give you a quick background into how the idea came about for the 950th. I'll give you a brief overview of some of the events that are scheduled for the year. I'll go into some of those in a bit more detail. I'll talk about some shopping opportunities, so some merchandise, and then as John said, there's an opportunity for questions and answers at the end. So the idea, actually, for those of you who haven't heard this, the idea started a couple of years ago. On the back of, I decided to take a second job while I was here to fund the celebrations of a significant birthday that I was having last year. I just felt I needed a bit more money for the celebrations. So it was a real opportunity to have another job and working in the castle and getting to know it better, getting to know your way around. And of course, part of that process was learning in a bit more detail about the history of the castle. And of course, you log the date that it was built in 1071. And one of the things I just decided one day I wanted to be able to say to people was the castle is X many years old. So one quiet afternoon I was going 1071, 1171 and just doing the adding up. And it got to 948. I thought, oh, 950th is looming. The castle should have a party. And so that's how the idea first got logged. And I now know better. But the next day I was in Mocha on a very busy Sunday and sitting at a table where there were spaces. And Marcia and Dennis McLucky came and just sat at my table. And I foolishly mentioned it to Marcia. And those of you who know better completely understand that she went, yes, what a great idea. There was a business association 5 days later, so I introduced it there. And by the end of the evening, we had a team of 3. So within the space of 5 days of the idea germinating, we had a team of Marcia, myself, and Phil Upton, who many of you know from Purple Creative, who does some of your work as well. And from that moment on, we have, I would say, been meeting regularly throughout the last couple of years, aided and abetted, I would say, by many people in town, some of whom are here on the screen at the moment. We've been fortunate recently that there's a new site manager at Richmond Castle, and she's been brilliant. She's relatively new to the castle, but not new to English heritage, and she's an archaeologist by background. And she's brought in more colleagues from English heritage in more recent months. So suddenly it feels like, having been talking amongst ourselves for some time, English heritage and the castle staff are really engaged. And certainly, as Colin will vouch for, the meeting we had with him on Wednesday, there's some really exciting new ideas fizzing around. So that felt very exciting. So we have been plotting the last couple of years. Thank goodness it wasn't this year, because obviously so much would not have happened. And it's interesting, I think, because if we'd started planning it last year, maybe we wouldn't have had anything to work on. I think the fact that we've been planning last year meant we had a framework to keep going with all through the challenges of this year. So yes, we now have, and Colin pointed this out on Wednesday, over 40 events and activities listed through the year for everyone, which was such a relief and rather a surprise, I have to say. Not that long ago, it did feel we had very little to show for our time and all the tea and the coffee and the wine that we've drunk in the planning process. But to see the programme come together, that's now going to become the first edition of a leaflet, was really exciting, and suddenly felt that stuff was coming together. We're obviously very mindful of the COVID restrictions, so many of the events have a plan B, and one particular I'll talk about even has a plan D. We're just being realistic, we're being pragmatic. Some things might have to be cancelled, so be it. I'm not going to lose sleep over that. But for where we can, we've got alternatives, and we'll do the best case we can with each event. So each event will be assessed in its own merit in terms of the guidelines and what will be feasible. We have had a framework for this that started quite early on, that's based on a historical timeline. Very loosely, we're starting with the Norman phase in the sort of March, April time, running through the year, through medieval, Tudor, Georgian, Victorian and September, with 20th century material happening sort of the end of November and December. And that's been kind of a loose framework to hang things on. And I have to say, just to give you a brief summary of, we have well over a dozen talks, including obviously the civic societies. We have a few markets planned. We have exhibitions planned. There are open days in the schedule. We've got workshops. We've got an archaeology project, which has already been mentioned. We've got several projects with the schools in Richmond and further afield as well. And I don't know if you've heard about this already, but there's plans to plant 950 trees up near the trading estate, and I'll mention that in a moment. So that's kind of a rough idea. And there will be a leaflet available at the beginning of January that's front cover will look slightly like that. That's sort of the front cover of the leaflet. The colours aren't right, the background won't be as dark as that, but it's going to be one of these leaflets that folds into three and opens out, and it will have information on some of the exhibitions and so on, as well as inside a calendar of events. So you'll be able to get, I'll explain how you'll be able to get that shortly as well. So one of the ideas we felt very strongly right from the beginning is that, okay, we had an idea, but there are many people in town who might already have had the idea or might already want to be involved, not least because, in fact, there's a history of doing this kind of work. And, you know, there was the 900th celebrations in 1071. And I certainly have met someone who said he was a young kid at that time. It's one of his favourite memories of childhood, with the celebrations of the 900th. And it just felt that how wonderful, and can we try and create something similar for everyone in town? So we've got into partnership with people like the Swaledale Festival, the Walking and Book Festival, and of course yourselves. It's been wonderful how the civic societies, and with your programme of talks, has completely dovetailed into what feels like it's been to mutual advantage. You've got a programme you want to fill. We were thinking about very castle specific talks, and maybe the timeline as well, if that could be embraced as well. And the programme that you've come up with is just so lovely to see. I mean, thank you so much. And you would have done it anyway, but the fact it's engaged with the 950th just gives a real depth and a continuity through the whole year. So thank you so much for all the work that's gone into that. The very first of the events is there's going to be a welcome to the Richmond 950th on Saturday, January the 2nd. And we were gathering at the curtilage in the marketplace from 10 in the morning till just after 12. The 950th team will be there with a few others with copies of the leaflet and merchandise for more shopping opportunities. and maybe some of the other contributors will be at the event as well, all within the guidelines. We're planning around that. And we hope to have St Mary's handbell ringers making a lot of noise. And at midday, the town crier will be introducing dignitaries, including Baroness Harris, Angela Harris, our patron, the mayor, and a few other invited dignitaries to just introduce and get the year started. But we're very, very aware that it's January and we won't want to be out too long. And then with your January, February and March programme in place, the main start of the year will really be on March the 27th, which again is a Saturday. There are plans to have a historical market. You might remember that not so long ago there was probably once a month a farmers market once a month on the Saturday market outside the co-op and outside the King's Head in that stretch. That has been booked, and there are plans for a similar layout with historical stalls, jesters, music, and much cheap, I think as Marcy calls it. So a lot of events happening on that day. We've chosen that date because partly it's the end of March. It's also the weekend before Easter. It's the beginning of the school holidays. But also there has been a history over the last few years of having a Love Being Local weekend, where some of the main attractions have given free entry to people who live in Richmond. With everything that's been going on with the COVID and people not meeting so much, it's not sure if that's going to go ahead in the same format. But we decided we'd use that date. It's possible it will expand into something larger than that. But that's where we feel it's going to be a more noisy and more celebratory launch to the year's events. What we will have around the town on that day, displayed in shop windows, will be examples of writing from children and residents of the residential and nursing homes. And I'll come back and talk to you and mention that a bit more as well. And we've also booked Ashley Barnard, who's our local journalist, who's going to be interviewing people to talk about their Richmond story. And we all have a Richmond story. Some of us have been born here, some of us are generations old, some like me, we moved here a few years ago. We've all got our reasons for being here. So the idea is that there's going to be a collecting of people's stories that in various formats, either through oral history recording, as this, or the writing, will be archived at the Richmondshire Museum for posterity, and just a record of what culture and society is like and our lives are like in Richmond on this particular day or this time of year in the town's history. So that's going to be happening on the 27th of March. And then through the year as well, then I'll go through, we've got a range of talks. So as well as all your civic society talks, we have the first female warden of the Tower of London coming to talk at the Georgian Theatre in the autumn. One of the people speaking at the Walking and Book Festival is someone called Henry Ward, and he is the chief researcher at Horrible Histories and also a part actor in the background on it. So he's going to talk about how he goes about researching for the programme, how he collects all his data and material from the British Museum and so on, the British Library. And he's going to be talking about that, and he's the opening speaker at the Walking and Book Festival. There are a number of exhibitions through the year. Some you might be familiar with. Rotary are planning a month's exhibition on 950 years of Richmond's communication. That's going to be taking place in August in the town hall. The station are planning an exhibition of a photographic and pictorial exhibition of scenes of Richmond. Richmondshire Museum are planning a celebration of Richmond Castle. And St Mary's Church are planning, they've got a hilarious title for theirs, and it's very pertinent, I think. It's called A Joyous Celebration of Richmond's Life Through the Ages. And it's called Keep Going. Obviously playing, oh, hello, Janet, I can see you there. Hello, Janet, hi. So you can see with Janet's picture, there's the keep behind it. And I just think in terms of what this year's been like, and I just think that's a brilliant, really brilliant title, thank you. So for your exhibition. So those will be taking place through the year. There are also concerts taking place. There's a Norman concert taking place in St Mary's in April. I have to be careful how I say the next one. I keep saying it wrong. In partnership with the Swaledale Festival, there's going to be two performances of Hildegard Transfigured, which is based on a nun from the 11th century, Hildegard, and I keep calling it Hildegard Transfixed, which is not what it is. That's going to be a concert taking place in St Mary's in June in the evening, and the second performance goes up till midnight. So it's all going to be candlelit, very atmospheric as hopefully the sun sets. There are plans for a concert at Easby Abbey, which I think was in the diary anyway, but has been absorbed, I say, part of the partnership. There are music events at the station. There's a Tudor singing concert, also a workshop, and this is an example of where it's a plan D involved. The idea is that there'll be a workshop in the morning and afternoon for people to come along and learn singing Tudor rounds, and that will become a concert in the late afternoon, early evening. But obviously at the moment, as things stand, we wouldn't be able to do that. So it could become a concert by the organisers. It could be a singing concert. It could be them playing their instruments. It could be them playing at home. So that's an example of the type of things that we're looking at possibly having to reorganise. And the Choral Society as well is producing and composing a new piece of music with a local poet as well for the 950th. And we also have concerts by local choirs, including Musicality, the Masked Singers, and the Station Singers. There are various open days planned. Mr. York's Gardens will be open. The Golf Club is planning to do various events, having an open day, playing on the if it was me, it'd be 950 goes to hit a hole in one, but they're playing on the 950th. And there's going to be a Victorian cricket match at the cricket club as well. And we have plans with the cricket club, with all their different clubs, for example, to celebrate who gets the 950th run next season. So there's looking at all the different clubs, and apparently it's quite easy to do because they're so absorbed into the cricket world that they're very strict on how everything's calculated and stored. I thought it'd be quite a tricky thing to ask, but apparently it's quite easy to do, which is great. There are some workshops. There's going to be a costume making workshop. So if you fancy making a Norman costume before the event in March, come along in February, half term. There's the Tudor singing workshop. And some of you are very glad to know that there's not just one beer making workshop, but there's going to be 3. It did feel that one wasn't enough possibly for Richmond Town. So there's going to be 3 beer making workshops in the town hall run by Brew Lab, I think they're called. Then there's, as John's already mentioned, there's plans to do some archaeology as well, and that's still being sorted out. So you will get more information as the spring unfolds. Everything I've mentioned really, apart from the cricket possibly, has been for the adults, and we're very mindful that we want to everything to be for as many people in the community as possible. And one of the things we're now planning with the schools is that in our 3 primary schools, every child and every adult working them will be given the opportunity to write down their Richmond story. So that under the title Richmond and Me, or what in terms of the adults, what brought me to Richmond. These will be written on A4 templates and collected in, and these will be displayed around town for the fortnight either side of Easter, in the same way that we've sometimes done that for the Walking and Book Festival. We're also doing the same concept with residents in the nursing homes here. So Greyfriars, the Terrace, Nightingale Hall and Riders Court. Where people are not so able to write their own stories, they'll be working with their carers to record their story. And again, under the title, What Brought Me to Richmond? And we're also planning to work with the estate agents. So anyone who moves to Richmond, either buying or rented, will be given the opportunity to write their story. Why have they moved to Richmond? So there'll be a whole caption of all age groups and different stories collected, again, as I say, for archiving at the museum, just to give a snapshot of our world in 2021 in this town. So that's a big writing project with that. We've just negotiated with English Heritage. Colin, this will be news for you because it's happened yesterday. They're very keen to offer free school visits to the castle for our children. We did have plans to have a workshop bringing schools together, but we just decided in the current climate, that was just not worth planning. It was too risky. The easiest option, and one that benefits most children, is for the children to have free visits to the castle. So that's all going to be in hand, and they're keen as well for that to be extended to the primary schools in Catterick as well. So we're really thrilled about that. There are also plans to do some staff training with history teachers from the 5 secondary schools in the area. So that's SFX, Richmond, Ryesdale, Wensleydale and Bedale. So they will be able to have, and from the primaries as well, actually, that they will be able to have access to the new materials that the castle has put together, have access to their, free access to their exhibition. And just essentially there's funding for staff to have time out of school to come and explore the castle and work out how best to take the material back to their school and their class and the national curriculum. I've mentioned the trees. Yes, there are plans to plant 950 trees starting soon. There's a hectare of land being given planning permission that's up on, near between the trading estate and the racecourse. I've not been involved in the fringe. I'm very much on the fringes of this. So Phil Upton and Joe Foster, who you might know from Kiss the Moon, so they've been heading this one up. But it just seems wonderful for us, and it seems very timely for those of you watching Country File. There's plans across the country to be planting trees, in fact across the world, and we're already on it, so which is very exciting and puts us, you know, really at the heart of something that's national and both and international as well. And there are other ideas in the pipeline as well. Just to give you some ideas, there are plans to, there will be banners on lamp posts once the Christmas decorations come down. The writers group here is planning to write what's called a chap book. There are plans for some street theatre, plans for some rambling, possibly a treasure hunt, hula hooping in Friary Gardens for anyone who's interested in that, and possibly more. And much of this has all been possible thanks to people such as yourselves, to other organisations we've been working with. Everyone's been so keen on this and so up for it. It's just been so heartening. And we're very mindful that maybe other people would have been planning to do something this year anyway. We just happened to come up with the idea first. And it's felt very much this is a partnership. And it's felt like that has gone on. If you have any more ideas, that's fine. It's more the merrier. And in terms of having the practicalities of making this possible, we've had funding and sponsorship from Richmondshire District Council, North Yorkshire County Council, private sponsors and businesses as well. So we're so grateful for everyone's generosity, and just hope as well that it's something to look forward to for next year, because goodness, we need it. And thank goodness it wasn't, as I said at the beginning, thank goodness it wasn't last year, or sorry, this year. But hopefully there's something of interest to nearly everyone in town, we hope. So that's all the events. And now it's a shopping opportunity, because as of tomorrow, we have, this is the logo and a tea towel. Can you? That's the 950 is the logo. In the centre, it has the keep, castle keep with the 1071 to 2021 and a bit of bunting along the top. So that is the logo. That is a tea towel that's for sale. There's tea towels. There are pencils and pens. I don't know if you can see it. That pen has the 950 on it. There's car stickers as well, which are free. It's back to front, isn't it? Didn't realise that. There will be mugs available to sell, to buy as well at the end of the week. There's been a delay on those. So if you'd like to get these for anything for Christmas, the merchandise is on sale at the information centre in the market hall. When they are closed I will have items for sale on my market stall because I'm in the market hall now. So I don't want to compete with sales. This is an opportunity for fundraising for the information centre. So when they're closed, I will be selling, but I'll close down when they're open. King Street Kitchens has taken some tea towels today, and Showcase Gallery has taken pens and pencils, and we'll have mugs as well. If you are a retail outlet and you would like to have these for sale as well, please do get in touch with me. There's a fixed price for everything. Mugs are £7, tea towels are £5.50, pencils are £1, pens are £2.50, and the car stickers are free. So I think that's a whistle-stop tour through plans for next year. And again, I can't thank you all enough for being part of this. The Civic Society's programme is one of the anchors, I would say, of the whole year. And all the talks are so relevant and pertinent. And thank you very much. And thank you, John, and your colleagues as well, for an opportunity to talk to you all. And I will now have a glass of wine.
Well done, Carol. Well done, Carol.
Much needed, Carol.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much indeed, Carol. While people think of questions, which we're going to take through the chat facility, if I could just say that I've been involved a little bit with the 950th, and I have not come across a more enthusiastic group of people ever, that is full of good ideas, full of enthusiasm, and they don't take no for an answer, because they have had some setbacks, and it has been difficult for them, particularly over the pandemic, lockdown, and funding difficulties and so on. But it's going to be a super year, and I think probably will pick up pace once people have had a jab and feel a little bit more confident to be out and about and so on. But there's lots and lots of good ideas, and I'm really pleased that Carol's been able to come and talk to us about them this evening, and thank you very much indeed, Carol. And one of the nice things, I don't know if Mike Wood is here tonight, but Mike came because he's been around a long time. He came up with this, which was the program, the souvenir handbook from 1971, which was when the 900 was going. And you can cast your mind back to 1971. There were things like decimalization, power cuts. There was a postal strike. So they had their setbacks as well. It wasn't plain sailing, but they had as well a very enthusiastic group of people, including somebody called Malcolm Needham, who was their treasurer. I don't know if people remember Malcolm. He remembers the 900 very, very well. And there are people in the Civic Society who remember the 900 very, very well in 1971. I know Jane Scott Priestley does. So I've rabbited on for long enough, and hopefully there will be some chat questions. I don't know if Carol can see chat questions or whether she'd like.
Oh, yeah, I can see part of it.
You have to sort of scroll down.
Oh, I've lost it. Was it something about a time machine? A time capsule?
It said, yeah, Carol, are you going to bury a time capsule in the castle or in the town?
That was one of the early ideas. It's kind of gone off the boil at the moment, but the idea was to do something at the very end of everything. So it might surface again. Watch this space, I would say.
And another comment that the Shroptimists, Shroptimist International of Richmond and the Dales have already purchased trees for the community woodland.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you very much.
There are opportunities to donate on the original Richmond Business and Tourism Association. There's a donate facility because they're obviously still looking for money, and you can specify particular projects that you'd like to support. Now, phenomenal organisation and a very exciting programme. Super ideas and great for Richmond. Well done, Carol, Marty and Phil. Well, I would endorse that 100%. I don't know who sent that in. Merrin. Yeah.
There was also a good question come up, and I should have mentioned it. Absolutely, yes, there is a dedicated website for this, and I should know it off by heart, and I don't. I'm rubbish on. It's www.richmond950.co.uk. Yes, and that's just going live, and it's still growing. It's got historical information, it's got events, and it's got a timeline in it of such events, including the 900th and so on. Yes.
I think there's another question about lighting of the beacon, whether that's going to happen, from Pat Castle.
Yes, again, a bit like the time capsule, that was one of an earlier ideas that hasn't taken off. I would say it's not in the schedule. I think it was, yeah, the answer's no at the moment.
Apparently the beacon.
But there's no reason why it can't, I suppose.
Yeah, apparently the beacon's a bit wonky, and I think they're a bit worried that it might collapse. The beacon has been lit on various occasions from the Spanish Armada, right through to Queen's Jubilee and so on. Yeah, possibly, if somebody's good at fixing beacons, that's what's needed.
Yes, if you know anyone who'd like to take that on, we'd be gratefully received.
Carol, I think maybe people have had enough time to chat on screen. I can see Fleur would like to come in.
Yeah, I can't work how to send a message. Will the merchandise be available on the internet?
Not at the moment, no. I think it's unlikely just because of the logistics of organising it. So no, it's to be available in the places I mentioned, yeah.
Right, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, here's interesting. It's almost as if it's been planted. Are there any plans to involve Saint-Aubin de Cormier?
Yes.
Now, funnily enough, I've been on with that today, and with the Twinning Society, so I can update Carol on that. Yes, there definitely are. Our patron, who is Baroness Angela Harris, who isn't, by her own confession, fluent in French, is going to have a message, a New Year message, which she will hopefully, through Zoom, through the new technology of Zoom, give to the mayor of Saint-Aubin. The people from Saint-Aubin were due to come over, but unfortunately that's had to be cancelled because of the pandemic. They couldn't take the risk, with bookings and stuff. But we are looking at a number of ways that we can involve Saint-Aubin, because I know a number of people are involved in, the various exchanges we've had over the years.
And I can give you an update as well on that as well, because for those of you who know I was a bit late to come into the meeting this evening, it's because I bumped into Richard Lawson from the Norwegian Twinning Association. So we've swapped numbers in order to try and maybe link up with them as well. So that's something that might develop.
Any more? Carol Hilliard just says archaeology.
There's one from Pat Cassell. Are any events going to be tied in with the Swaledale Festival? I think, Carol, you mentioned that at one point, but do you want to say any more than that?
Just that, yes, there is going to be one of the concerts that's dovetailing with our 950th, and that's the Hildegard Transfigured. Get the name right. Yes.
If I can just say a word about the archaeology, we are still in the process of fundraising to try and get the amount of exploration, if you like, of the medieval past of the castle and other aspects of the archaeology program fully funded. We're getting there, but it's one of those things it can go ahead even if there's social distancing, and we hope by August, through the summer. But it's an outdoor activity, so it's factored in, and it will go ahead regardless. and that was really sort of, you know, the catalyst was the Civic Society taking the opportunity to offer some sort of seed call funding to get that started, and that's grown now, and other applications are going in to try and swell the amount to get up to the target to do all the explorations that is planned.
Good. Colin, I noticed that Patricia Ferry from Bedale has written in giving the website, the dedicated website address. So if anybody didn't get it down when Carol mentioned, spoke it, it's there on screen.
Well, if we haven't got any more questions, there's two people that I would like to thank, because John, you know, thanks everybody. The first is obviously William Geddy, who, without whose expertise, none of this Zooming would go as smoothly as it has, and we're really thankful to William, because it takes a lot of pressure off. I know the one time I did it, things went wrong, and it's quite a pressure system. But he, you know, he's gained a lot of experience with it, and we're very, very grateful to William. And the second one is John, who thanks everybody else, but never gets a virtual pat on the back. So if I could give John a virtual pat on the back for sharing us and keeping us going, you know, throughout the year. Well done. We look forward to a super year next year.
We do indeed. We do.
And finally, once again, thank you very much to Carol Watson for. There's another chat thing that says for giving us such a super talk. And thanks to Tina. Somebody says, and thanks to Tina. Absolutely, absolutely. Thanks to Tina for all the work she does on the review. Well, both John and Tina for all the work they've done on the review, which is super.
There's no exam questions, but I hope you're enjoying reading it. It's quite a full edition, slightly longer. So we thought you might have plenty of reading time.
Yeah, and Jen Catewell, thanks everybody for delivering the review in the rain. Including, well, not everybody. I didn't do it in the rain. I waited until the rain had stopped. I know, but John and Tina went out in the rain, and I know Simon and Jane went out in the rain, and it was a foul day on the Friday. So back to you, John.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, members, the only thing I need now to say is that we all hope you have a really good Christmas, in spite of the curious, non-Christmassy kind of restrictions that we're all living under. And were we in the town hall, we would now be going and having mince pies and pork pies and glasses of wine. And I wish, and oh yes, well, I can see the Barrowcloughs are well away. Val Hepworth is having a cup of tea. But I mean, it really, for me, the AGM of the Civic Society is always the beginning of Christmas. We need to keep that spirit going. So you will all receive in the new year a newsletter, and we'll meet. Colin, I think we're meeting with Mike Wood.
Yeah, Mike Wood on the 6th of January. The
6th of January.
There's 3 talks specifically about the castle.
Right.
The first 3. And Mike is taking us right up from the Stone Age up to the Normans. All the archaeology.
Is my memory serving me right? I think the 6th of January is 12th night, is it?
It is.
So that's an easy day to remember. So thank you all very, very much for being with us this evening and helping us through this strange AGM. Very best wishes to all of you. Happy Christmas. Get the mistletoe out or whatever, holly, and enjoy. So possibly if the committee and Carol Watson could stay on screen, so we can debrief, we can now release everybody, go and watch television or whatever you wish to do for the rest of the evening. Thank you very much for being here.
Happy Christmas, everyone.
Happy Christmas. Yes.